Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got a first impressions video to knock out for you. This knife was loaned to me by my buddy John. John, you may know from BGM Knives. John is the maker of BGM Knives, and he is an awesome dude. I've been impressed with John lately because not only does he make really cool knives, but I just keep seeing him be supportive of other makers and like complimenting their work, and like he actually buys other knives and he's into knives beyond just making them. And for him to be as talented as he is at making knives, I love the BGM fixed blade that I have. The one that I included in my last giveaway that I got to check out before I sent out was phenomenal. He makes really good knives, and so it's cool to me that he's as engaged with the community and like seems genuinely interested. So anyways, he just bought this knife for himself and reached out to me asking if I'd reviewed one, and I said no, and he said sweet, I'll send it over so that you can review it. Really cool, generous dude. So I'm borrowing this from John to check out. After I did my unboxing, he actually responded to that and said to go ahead and cut with it and carry it and use it. So I'm not going to be mean to this knife, but I have done a little bit of cutting and I will do some more to see how it performs. I've had this knife in pocket for one whole day since it got here, and so I'm ready to do my first impressions. My full review will come after I've had it in pocket at least 5 or 6 times, and it's been in my possession at least a week, and I've done enough cutting with it and tasks with it to really feel like I can speak from experience on it. That is my process, and I will honor that for this knife as well. So this is the Emerson CQC-7. I had the ProTech version of this knife for a little bit, and that was the automatic version, which obviously had some differences because it was made by ProTech and was an auto, and this is made by Emerson and is a liner lock. That one also didn't have the wave because it was an auto, and yeah, it was very different. So this feels like a completely different knife to me, if I'm being honest. One of the things that I really like about Emerson knives is the way that they do their edges, if I'm being honest. And I've done a little bit of cutting with this so far to kind of confirm that for myself because I was intrigued by it. So I've done some just like slicing with this. I've done some paper, see how the edge did. This is the factory edge. It did great through paper. No snags, no hang-ups, anything. Even through like light pages. It did well. And then I've passed it through some cardboard. It did well for that as well, especially considering how frankly thick behind the edge this knife is. This is not a slicey grind, but it's a slicey edge, and so it's kind of cool to me the way that works. I talked about it in my unboxing, but basically if you look at the blade here, you'll see we have a kind of saber flat grind with a big generous flat over it. So it's not a super thick blade stock to begin with, but this is a big flat. The grind doesn't come up very high, but we've got this edge bevel that looks kind of tall if you really look at it. And it's a tanto, so you've got it kind of a transition point there, but the edge is a pretty tall edge. But if you look at the clip side of this knife, you'll see the grind is the same, but there's no edge bevel. It doesn't exist over here. That's because even though it's a V-ground bevel, it's a chisel ground edge. So instead of having a V-ground bevel and then a like tighter V actual edge bevel, I'm so bad at describing this, I don't know why I keep trying. You have a V-ground bevel, and then you have a chisel edge, so only one side gets the actual edge bevel. What that means is, I still don't know what degree this is held at or what, but I'd assume it's probably about, I don't know, a 20 degree, maybe 22 degree edge bevel over here. With it being only on one side, our edge is 22 degrees inclusive. If you have a V-ground edge, then if you've got, say, even if it's a small angle and you're at 15 degrees inclusive, that would be 30 because you've got two 15-degree edge bevels, right? So, and that would be 15 degrees. I mean, you see it, but it's not like crazy common. Spyderco, I think, factory grinds at about 17 degrees. So 17 degrees per side, that's 34 degrees inclusive. So even if this is a 25 degree bevel on this side, it's 25 inclusive because it's just the one. So that does a couple of weird things. I don't know if you'll see it, but the way that the tip looks, it almost looks like it's like a little bit tweaked. You especially notice it, or at least I do, when I'm like checking for centering, because it almost makes it look like the knife is a little off center, the way the edge just like off to the side. I don't know, it's interesting. I get a kick out of it. But I've liked the way that the edge is performing. The steel on this guy is CPM 154, 154 CM, not CPM 154. I always accidentally say one or the other. Anyway, 154 CM, which is like ridiculously commonplace for Emerson knives. That's like what they use at Emerson. So no surprises there. It's got steel liners, G10 scales. The hardware is funny on this guy. It's got Phillips head screws for the body screws, which is just different. And then you do have a torque spit, or sorry, not a torque spit, a flat head pivot. So I think the idea behind that is Emerson, from what I can perceive and what a lot of their marketing is and from what a lot of people say about them, is kind of like a military type of knife. I think a lot of people serving carry Emersons. And that's kind of Emerson's goal. And so the idea of having this type of hardware, I mean, how many guys who are deployed bring Torx bits with them? They probably have a little Phillips head and at least certainly have either a coin or a flathead that they could use to adjust the pivot. So that does make it better if you're out in the field somewhere and you don't have the typical like knife tinkerers Torx bits on you. So there's that. It also has the thumb disc and the wave, of course, so interesting compared to other knives. Some people love the wave. I do not. I don't hate waved knives. The way that the wave works, if you're pulling the knife out of your pocket, you pull kind of backwards instead of just straight up, and it catches on the corner of your pocket, and that deploys the knife. It would go better than off of my finger if it's off my pants. In fact, I've done it quite a few times off my pants. It deploys reliably, but as you're drawing the knife, it deploys using the edge of your pocket. So you don't have to pull the knife out and then flick it open once it's in your hand. It just comes out almost fixed blade-esque. It's arguably the fastest way to deploy a knife. I can certainly see the argument there. And for me, it's probably even faster. It's not even like something you really have to practice that much for it to work. It at least for me, came pretty intuitively, and I've owned a number of knives over the years that have wave deployment. I carried a knife almost exclusively for years, the Cold Steel AK-47, back when they had the Axis style lock. That one had a type of wave, although it wasn't, they can't use Emerson's actual wave, but it had the same type of deployment method, and when I was used to it, it was fine. But I revolve my knives too much, and so I don't like that I have to remember I'm carrying a waved knife, and then accidentally, if I forget, I go to pull the knife out of my pocket and it like half deploys, and then that's just not a situation I want to deal with when I'm getting my knife out to do something, because my muscle memory is then to go for the studs or the hole or the flipper to open it, and I just don't want a knife coming out of my pocket partially opened. That's a bad mix. So I don't personally love the wave, but I don't hold it against people who do, because I see the merit of the system. It also has the thumb disc. That's also a polarizing thing. One thing funny about my unboxing of this knife is I saw there was just more than typical of people hating on the knife. It kind of brought out some people who have some feelings about Emerson knives. And I'm not even saying that they're wrong. I understand a lot of the criticisms are like the materials for the price that they cost seem a little out of whack. They feel kind of clunky in their design language, especially their like production ones. And I think a lot of that is valid, and I'll probably talk about some of that in my full review. But yeah, the thumb disc for me is just fine. I have it's an Emerson design, but my zero tolerance 0620 also has a thumb disc for deployment. That knife is 10 times smoother than this one, so I like it on that one better. Especially this one, I don't really have access to middle finger flick the knife, and one thing I like about the thumb disc on that one is it's great for middle finger flicking. In fact, it works as well or better for me than thumb deploying that knife. This one, even thumb deploying it with the action this stiff, I mean, I have to use wrist. I feel like I'm back in the 90s, and I'm like flinging my knife out like that because A, I didn't know any better, and B, a lot of knives were stiff like this back then, from at least the knives that I experienced. So, I don't know. The action is definitely, in my opinion, a weak point on this knife. So far, I don't particularly love the wave. It carries okay. It's definitely thick, but yeah, I don't know. I need to carry this knife some more. I need to do some more cutting with it to really see where I end up on it. At the moment, I feel like, honestly, where it shines for me, the real feature that is kind of keeping me intrigued by the knife is the way that the edge is ground. Because I don't own any other knives. I don't think I've ever owned any other knives that have a chisel edge. And I like that. I feel like that should probably be done more. One thing that's funny is someone did comment saying that the chiseled edge, frankly, is kind of on the wrong side for right-handed use. It should be on this side in terms of the way cutting is done with a chiseled edge, but Emerson seems to do it because aesthetically they want the show side to have the edge bevel, which I think is funny. I'm going to do more cutting with it and see if I agree, but if that's true, that is funny to me that Emerson is making the choice to do a chiseled edge, which seems to be a performance-based choice, like because it improves the cutting performance, but then that they're doing it on the side. Who's using this knife left-handed? It's a knife that's designed to go in the right hand. I don't know. That's funny to me. As someone who's a little bit ambidextrous, sometimes passes my knife to my left hand, especially for like really fine cutting tasks. Maybe I'll find that I'm cool with it, but yeah, if it really does feel better left-handed than right-handed, then I will hold that against them that they're putting it on the wrong side because it looks cooler. I also don't aesthetically think this is a super cool looking knife, so it's just a little funny to me that they would do that. I don't know, a lot to still unpack here, but so far I'm glad that I'm experiencing this one. I appreciate John for sending it over. I haven't reviewed any actual Emersons. I've done some Emerson designs from ProTech or from Zero Tolerance, but I haven't reviewed any actual Emersons. So this is interesting because so far I like the ProTech version of this knife way better than this knife, and I like the Zero Tolerance version of an Emerson better than I like a real Emerson. So I'm intrigued. I know there are a lot of models at Emerson. There are some that are more alluring to me than others. The only one I've ever owned was an A100, and it was stiff like this, and I didn't love. I liked it a lot more before I got it than when I actually got it in hand. So I feel like this is kind of stacking up similarly to how I ended up feeling about that A100 that I owned. But we'll see. I'm going to honor the process. I'm going to carry it more. I'm going to use it a little more. Maybe something clicks for me. Maybe I end up liking it even less than I do now. Open to either thing happening. But we're gonna see where it ends up. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Emerson CQC-7A. And thanks again to John for loaning it to me. John will be linked down below. So check out John on Instagram or his website. And if you haven't tried a BGM knife yet, I recommend it. Thanks, guys.